Namaskar, Namaste, Namaskaram, and welcome to another session where we can clear all your doubts. Today, we're going to talk to you about vaccinations and how it can be used for different denominations of kidney patients, whether you're CKD, dialysis, and transplantation. But kidney warriors, along with Biocon, and of course, our doctors who support us, believe that every citizen of our country has a responsibility to be vaccinated. Let me introduce you today to অভিনন্দন ব্যানার্জি, I've been calling দাদা all this while, but এখন বুঝতে পেরেছে কি আমার থেকে অনেক অনেক ছোট আছে. So Dr. Banerjee has completed CBS in 2007 from Medical College Kolkata, MD Medicine in 2012 from IPGMAR, and DM in 2017 from IPGMAR. Currently consultant nephrologist and transplant physician at CK Birla Group of Hospitals, Kolkata, and an assistant professor of nephrology. So, doctor, the first question is that I have had COVID and recovered. I need to get vaccinated, but recent research from the Cleveland Clinic says that people who have already had COVID-19 may not necessarily benefit from vaccinations. Is it true that there are enough antibodies?
See, there is a difference between a normal population and a kidney patient population, the CKD patients. Firstly, I'm going to give the answer regarding the CKD patients. For the CKD patients who mount this seroconversion is almost 100% in case of CKD patients. But the fallacy is that the antibodies go down very quickly. Almost at the end of 3 months, the antibody, the protective antibody, the anti-spike antibody, it becomes almost negligible. So they are more prone to infection once again after 3 months is over post-COVID for the CKD patients. I'm not talking about normal population. So for CKD patients who have a poor immunity or immunocompromised, definitely 100% they should go for a vaccination even if they have COVID.
Okay.
But the scenario is a little bit different for the normal population. Here, the COVID vaccination acts as a booster dose basically. It will enhance your immunity. It will last longer. But immediately, you may be safe.
All right. Should I go on to my second question, Dr. Banerjee?
Sure.
I'm a 1.5 years post-transplant patient. I have taken the first dose of Covishield. Can I take the second dose after 28 days? As per guideline, gap has to be of 48 days, but I'm exempted as per DGS guidelines as I need to travel. I want to know if there will be any adverse effects for post-transplant patients if I take it before time.
See, there has been no trial on post-transplant patient as of yet. There is no data as of yet. But definitely, it can be rest assured that transplant patient amounts less response than a normal patient. It has been shown with other vaccines also, like the influenza vaccine, the seroconversion rate is 60 to 70% of the normal population who develops the antibody. That means you will be 30% less safer than a normal population in case of COVID, in case of transplant patient. So whether you take it at a gap of 4 weeks or 6 weeks, it doesn't matter. You should be complete as early as possible. It will not make any difference. And in fact, there are some trials which are coming up. They are telling that for those patients who are immunocompromised, like post-transplant patient, they might be needing more than 2 doses also.
Yes, we have heard that as well. So we go on to our third question. If after vaccination, I don't have enough antibodies, what can be done?
See, basically the WHO or the CDC doesn't recommend testing for antibodies post-vaccination. They don't recommend unless you are immunocompromised, unless your age is more than 65, because the efficacy of the immunity doesn't depend on the antibody itself. It depends on multiple things. In fact, the T cell memory assay should also be included, which is not just available for the lab purpose, not for routine response. That means if you even ever don't have an antibody, that doesn't mean you are not showing that they might be needing it, because with the age or the immunocompromised status, they are more prone to develop less response to vaccine than a normal population.
Okay. We move on to our next question, which is, in which vaccinations are there better chances for not getting affected by COVID?
Can I get the question, Manpa?
In which vaccination has better chances of protecting you from COVID?
Basically, for the transplant patients, obviously, who
That's
develops
right.
less response to vaccination, normal standard vaccination. They should go for a mRNA vaccine, no doubt about that, because the response is more than 90%, which mRNA vaccine like the Moderna or Pfizer. But the problem is that is not available in India at present.
Yes.
That is not available in India at present. So we have to be complacent, we have to be with that Covishield only.
All right.
Covishield only. But none of the vaccines are live vaccines. So more or less all vaccines can be taken according to the current guideline.
Okay. I'm on dialysis. I got my first dose and my mother got COVID. Though I'm observing COVID rules, I'm worried. Will my first dose taken 10 days ago protect me?
Single dose definitely gives a little bit of protection as well also. That is not a complete protection, but single dose of Covishield, it has been shown to give a protection of around 60%. But that will not last long. That will wean off quickly. So it will give you protection, but it is better to have a complete vaccination as soon as possible.
All right. Can a CKD patient at stage 3 travel by air after having taken the second dose 15 days ago?
No problem in it. No problem.
And can we move around otherwise too with just our masks on, or should we stay back at home since we are on CKD?
See, basically, that doesn't mean all patients who take, all normal people also who take the vaccination should follow the social distancing and the mask and the hand sanitizer and everything. But as the CKD patients are less prone to mount the antibody response, they should give a little bit more time, not only 15 days, because trials have shown that they develop the response after 3 to 5 weeks, not 15 days. And that is also after the second dose, not the first dose itself. So for the CKD patients, they should maintain a stringent policy more than the normal population for at least 1 month, after the second dose of vaccination. Because we don't know how much response they will develop, because all the current vaccine, none of the patients who have been trialed on, they are CKD patients. So we cannot confirm how much efficacy our CKD patients will develop, the vaccine will give after taking the vaccine. Now, basically, there are in this 2021, there are multiple new vaccines coming up with some old vaccines. All the vaccines which are currently being used are all safe because none of them are live vaccines, which we use for the CKD patients. Any kind of live vaccines will have a deleterious effect on any kind of patient, mainly CKD and the pregnant ones, because they will replicate and can cause further infection and other things. So the current belief that patient can get COVID after vaccination is totally false, because none of the vaccines are live vaccines currently which are used.
So are you trying to say that a patient who takes the vaccinations right now are totally protected, 100% protected from COVID?
Never, because none of the vaccines say they give 100% efficacy. None of the vaccines. Currently in India, we have 3 vaccines which are being used. The number one is the Covishield, the AstraZeneca one, which has a strange data which shows that half and a full dose gives a 90% efficacy, but the 2 full doses give 70% efficacy after the second dose. While the Covaxin has just come up with their phase 3 trial, which has shown that they have efficacy of around 78%. And the last one, which is just being approved, is the Sputnik V. The Sputnik V is a Russian vaccine, which gives an efficacy at around 90%. The difference is that these are the AstraZeneca and the Sputnik V. They are basically a genetically vector containing viral protein vaccine. And while the Covaxin is it's a whole vaccine which has been inactivated. The basic difference is that basically what a vaccine does, when the vaccine gets inoculated into the body, it tells our immunity kids it's a time of artificial infection which you are getting in. You mount a response by producing antibody, and that antibody in the long run will be protective. This is the normal mechanism of any vaccine. The vehicle by which this infection is inoculated into the body is different. For example, for those with the mRNA vaccine, like those which are not now still available in India, but having the best efficacy, are the Moderna and the Pfizer ones, both having efficacy around more than 90%. It's 94.5 for one and 95 for another. They basically inoculate a mRNA which produces the spike protein within the body, and the antibody is bound against the spike protein. That spike protein is the protein through which the COVID virus gets anchored into the cell wall by adhering to the AC receptor, the angiotensin converting enzyme receptor. If antibody is produced against the spike protein, the virus will not be able to adhere to the cell and will not be able to infect the cell, and basically the virus will then die if it doesn't get into the host. So the anti-spike protein is the target protein which is being followed by all the vaccine manufacturers, but that the vehicle by which this infection is given into the body is different. For example, for mRNA vaccine, they just give a lipid nanoparticle which contains this mRNA. They get into the body. From the mRNA, the protein gets synthesized, and that protein induces the antibody response, the T and the B cell response. But in case of the ChAdOx vaccine, the AstraZeneca or the Covishield vaccine, here we use a chimpanzee adenovector, which has been genetically made inert, that they cannot replicate within the body. It contains that spike unit, the spike protein. It incorporates the spike protein, that adenovector that is inoculated into the body, and then that spike protein mounts antibody response, and the body gets protected. These are all basically targeted against this spike protein only. But the same about the Sputnik V also. Sputnik V is also an inactivated viral vector, adenovector vaccine, which contains the spike protein. But the Covaxin, which seems to be a superior in form of things, because it is a whole virus vaccine. It's not a part vaccine. It's not a part protein vaccine. It's a whole virus vaccine which has been inactivated. Ideally, what the benefit is that, though the response is a little bit low, what the data has showed, they have efficacy of 78%. But what it showed that if there is any mutation, the basic protein will remain same. So ideally, a whole virus vaccine should be able to tackle any kind of variant virus which comes in the long run. So it should be the best bet for against all these current variations which are available, the alpha, beta, delta, like all this. While the spike protein vaccine will not be able to, because it's against a particular protein. So it will be, if the virus mutates, that protein will become defunct. But though the current scenario, it has been shown that delta is also protected by the Covishield and other mRNA vaccines, albeit a little bit to a lesser extent, not like that of a whole virus vaccine. But any inactivated virus, though it tackles all kinds of variants, but their humoral or the cell-mediated response is definitely lower than a virus which is live or which is replicating, like the mRNA or the adenovector vaccines. So efficacy will always be superior in those which are replicating in the body, because they will mount more response. But the cons is that if there is any mutation, they will be tackled less efficiently by this spike protein vaccine.
All right. Now we have a question from the house of FB Live, and it's from Sanvi Sanav, and she says, my kidney transplant has completed 5 years now. I'm 50 plus. Can I take the COVID vaccine now, and is it safe?
Anytime you will be able. You should be taking the COVID vaccine now, and all the vaccines available in India are suitable for you. Basically, we advise the vaccine for all transplant patients who has taken ATG, a minimum gap of 3 months after transplant only. After 3 months, if you have taken ATG, you can take the vaccine.
Okay, and Dr. Banerjee, since we know that you are a nephrologist dealing basically in and mainly in transplant, Apni bolte parben, will you be able to tell us how many transplants have you done during the COVID times and how successful have they all been?
See, all the transplants have been successful.
God
None of
bless.
them, God bless, all the transplants have been successful in the last 1 year. But obviously, numbers have come down because patients are fearing to undergo transplant now. In
Yes.
last 1 year, I had done about 28 transplants. 28.
Wow, that's fabulous.
No, that's pretty less. That's pretty less.
It's less, but giving these trying times, it's really fabulous to know that
Yes,
you're
yes,
able to
yes, yes,
manage
yes.
and carry your patients
Though
from.
basically, the problem is that the lifestyle of a patient who doesn't undergo transplant, who continues to be on dialysis, if they get a COVID, that is worse.
That's true.
So better take a chance. If it's okay, if the transplant is good and you can stay home for 3 months, after that take the vaccine. For good enough, you'll have a good lifestyle, no problem. And if you can vaccinate the people who are around you, you'll be in a safest shell possible.
Yeah, and actually, Dr. Banerjee, I think if you're looking at it this way, I think COVID times are the best times to have your transplant because anyway, you don't have anywhere to go. So
Exactly,
isolation,
exactly.
social distancing are part of the game for transplants as
ঠিক
well.
কথা। মানে you will be more stringent, you will be more compliant, and you will be having all your medicines and doing everything ekdam as doctors advise.
And anyway, after transplant, you're not allowed to move out for at least 3 months to make sure that your immunity
Minimum 3 months.
is there.
Minimum 3 months.
So
Exactly.
if, as doctor is saying, if you are on the brink of getting a transplant, I think have faith in your doctors and the system and go ahead because anyway, we're all staying at home. Of course, it's different that the doctors have to travel to make sure that
Exactly.
you all are healthy. Doctor, so we've told everybody the importance of vaccinations, the importance of having successful transplants. Probably the best way to look at it is that during COVID times, anyway, you're staying at home. So you will be even more compliant, even more stringent, and no temptation to go anywhere. So we congratulate you, Dr. Banerjee, for completing 28 transplants and leading everybody home safely. Now, since you are on our panel, we'd also like to ask you some non-COVID related topics. And one of the questions that have come up is, I'm post-transplant. From veg meals, I don't get enough nourishment from dal, rice, and vegetables. May I take a protein supplement for muscle wasting?
Post-transplant, if your creatinine is normal, we don't ask to restrict protein.
All right. So I hope that answers it.
We don't ask you to restrict protein. We don't ask you to restrict protein at all. If you're doing well, your graft is doing well, if you're making plenty of urine, if your creatinine is normal, why are you... because most of the patients whom I do after doing transplant, their first comment is that এবার আমি পেট ভরে খেতে পারবো,
which translates from Bengali to अब मैं ठीक से पेट भर के खा सकती हूँ या खा सकता हूँ. That means finally I can eat and drink to my stomach's content, not my heart's content.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
We move on
Exactly.
to our next question, and I'm sure many people have started doing this during the lockdown because they need to energize themselves, and that's by keeping pets. So are there any restrictions on keeping a pet post-transplant? I want a pet dog.
And there are some restrictions definitely because as the immunity is low, when you're made to be having a low immunity, there are many zoonoses which comes from the pet. There are many zoonoses which comes from the pet. So the pet should be regularly checked by a vet. The pet should be thoroughly immunized, and the pet should be also maintaining a hygienic practice like the master. So preferably, if you are not into if you're a thorough animal lover, that's a different issue. Otherwise, at least I don't say any of my patients to keep a pet because there are many zoonoses which comes from the pet, and that can be life-threatening in the case of transplant.
What is a zoonosis? Can you please explain that?
Zoonosis means infections which originate from animals.
Oh my God. Okay. So all you pet lovers,
There's specific some infections which comes from dogs, which comes from cats, which comes from cows. So basically, we ask them to keep a distance at least 1 year. At least 1 year.
So
at least 1 year.
Dada, then I think the best thing that we can do is probably buy yourself some fish that you can keep in a tank.
Keep it in aquarium. Yes, that's a better. So that
also is another option till you
eat fish and watch them.
Eat fish and watch them. This is a typical Bengali speaking. Huh? March tak dekho aur khao. Now we move on to the next question. And this is, my creatinine is 4.22, my urea is 57.3. My doctor has suggested I do a preemptive transplant. Should I go ahead? When should I decide, and based on what systems?
100%, 100%. This is the norm in outside countries. In USA, you can go for a preemptive transplant as low as a GFR, as high, not low, basically it's high, low for us, high for them, as high as a GFR of 30 also in diabetic patients.
Okay.
So preferably there is a term called dialysis vintage. The longer you are on dialysis, the worse response is on transplant. So the best thing is to undergo a preemptive transplant. Best thing is to undergo preemptive transplant. Whenever you are CKD4, start your workup and get a transplant done when you are CKD5.
So if you don't have, you just skip the entire dialysis process.
So you don't skip, because for the OT purpose you need at least 2 to 3 dialysis that will keep the uremic milieu to the minimum. All preemptive transplant doesn't mean it's a dialysis-free transplant. You will need only 2 to 3 dialysis prior to the OT.
So this is something new that we have discovered.
In the last 1 year, I had done at least 8 preemptive transplants. People are getting now more conscious. They're getting transplant even before doing the fistula.
Oh, wow. So this is something that we've learned, I've heard for the first time, is calling dialysis vintage. So if you are on CKD4, it's better to start moving your papers and your thought processes towards a transplant, get onto dialysis.
If you are thinking of transplant, go ahead as soon as you, if you have a donor or if your mother is donating you, go ahead as early as possible. As early as CKD4, you should start the workup.
All right. And as of now, the last question that I have on my sheet of paper is that I finished 5 months of transplant. My TAC level went up to 24. So my tacrolimus dose was reduced to 1 mg in the morning and 1 mg in the evening. Is this okay? The doses have been changing since past few weeks. I hope this dosage is enough.
No, the issue is that, is this your first transplant or you are a sensitized patient? This is second or third transplant. Basically, after 5 months, we tend to keep the TAC level to about, for a first transplant patient, to about 7 to 9. It's 24, it's pretty high.
Okay.
24 is pretty high. We keep it around 7 to 9. That TAC level will harm your kidneys. But the issue is that people metabolize TAC level differently. Different people metabolize TAC level differently. For some patient, 1 milligram twice daily TAC level will amount to a TAC level of about 3 to 5. But for some patient, it will go beyond 12. Basically, the dose is not important. The important is the TAC level. If it is okay, then whatever dose that produces that TAC level is okay. You should maintaining your TAC level around 7 to 9 after 5 months of transplant.
All right. Now we have 2 more questions that have come up on FB Live. One is from Suresh Palakirti. He says, if a person gets vaccination, he or she can go for transplantation surgery immediately, or do we have to wait for some duration? And after transplant, when can we take the vaccination? So there are 2 questions. One is, of course, if a person takes vaccination, how soon can they go for transplant? And a transplant patient, how fast can they take the vaccination?
The currently CDC guideline, it has recommended 2 things. For those who have completed the vaccine, those who have completed the vaccination, there should be a gap of around 15 days for the next transplant, for the transplant. And those who have not taken the vaccine, and if they are treating with a B-cell depleting therapy, that means ATG, they should wait for at least 3 months for getting the first vaccine.
After your transplant. That was asked by Sheila Raina. So as Dr.
Because
Raina
most of the transplants are now done through a B-cell depleting therapy with ATG. So those who receive ATG as an induction agent should wait for at least 3 months.
Okay. So thank you, doctor, for answering that question for Sheila Raina. And right now we have Sunny who's asking, what about immunocompromised people who have no antibodies after 2 jabs? Do they need to take a third and or a booster jab? So actually,
immunocompromised patient is a separate issue. For normal people who do not develop any antibody after 2 jabs, the matter is a little bit complex, because your vaccine efficacy doesn't depend on the anti-spike antibody, which people now go on testing. I don't have an anti-spike antibody, because it is something more. It involves the T-cell memory as well, which is in the bone marrow, which comes from the bone marrow. That is not, there is no test to measure the T-cell memory response, which after the vaccine which develops. So basically, who or CDC doesn't recommend testing your anti-spike antibody after doing your vaccination. But the scenario is different in a immunocompromised patient, because they don't mount response. As I'm telling you, they don't mount adequate response like normal people. For them, a third jab may be necessary. The scientists and the formulators are not thinking about it, but it has not come into practice till now. It is not being offered anywhere else. It is not being offered anywhere else.
So what does an immunocompromised person like Sunny, who is now post
Exactly, like a post-transplant patient is
not only has he failed his transplant, he's on dialysis, he's taken both his vaccinations and his antibodies are still low.
He should be taking a booster dose if available, because our government doesn't recommend any booster dose. But papers and trials are coming which says that people above 65, an immunocompromised patient who doesn't mount any response, should be receiving a third dose, which can be something else, not the dose you have taken, because the vaccination efficacy increases if you take separate doses, or which has not come yet. If an intranasal dose is given, intranasal dose gives a better vaccine response than a normal intramuscular dose. Intranasal vaccines are coming. Intranasal vaccines are coming. Those who doesn't develop any response, they are asking to take a second vaccine, a third dose of a separate vaccine, or an intranasal dose. Intranasal dose, basically, they give rise to a good amount of innate, humoral, and cell-mediated immunity. 3 of them.
Okay. So basically, he is advising for a booster dose, and right now he is saying about the intranasal. That's right, intranasal dosage.
Intranasal vaccine,
which is available, which will be available soon to
in
people.
India. So not available still yet, but it will be coming soon.
Yeah, and Sunny also says that he's on prednisolone, 5 mg and 2.5 mg on alternate days. So this is his immunosuppression that he's using.
No.
So
he's suitable for taking any vaccine. The steroid should be less than 20 for taking any vaccine.
Okay. Sheila Raina asked 2 questions. What is the ATG technique, and what vaccine is good for a transplant patient?
ATG is not a technique. It is a drug.
ATG is a drug.
ATG is a medicine, antithymocytic globulin, which basically depletes all your B cells so that the body becomes fully immunocompromised. There should be no antibody production. Ideally. Okay. It's a ideal scenario. There should be no beta cell in the body.
All right.
This is a drug which we use as an induction agent, just to knock off the immunity totally, to knock out the immunity totally. It's called induction agent. It's used in all kind of highly sensitized transplant.
Okay. Thank you.
And the second, and she asked another question. What was the second question?
What is the best vaccine for a transplant patient?
None of them are available in India yet, because the best vaccine will be, which is not a live one. Most of the vaccines are not a live one. The vaccines with the best efficacy should be used for a transplant patients, because, as I have said, they develop 60 to 70% of the response of a normal person. So any vaccine which is having a efficacy of more than 90 should do well in a transplant patient. So the best vaccine for a transplant patient, it should be the Moderna or the Pfizer one. None of them are available in India.
They're available here. All right. Sheila Raina also says that her husband was given rituximab, and he still has to wait for 3 months before the vaccine.
Same thing. Anti CD20, but it depletes the B cell. So he should wait for another 3 months, like just like the ATG one.
Okay. And she also has one more question for you, Sheila, which is, what should be the urine output, until when should it be monitored after transplant?
See, initially after the transplant, the post of day 0 or day 1, the kidneys are just a brand new one. It's a nascent kidney. It doesn't have its normal ability to concentrate. Normally what we do, our body makes around 180 liters of urine per day, but we just pass out around 2 to 3 liters per day. Basically, the other parts get reabsorbed. The kidneys concentrate it. So initially, when we do a transplant, the first 2 to 3 days, the patient passes almost 15 to 20 liters of urine for the first 2 to 3 days. But gradually it comes down. By the day 4 or day 5, they pass around 5 to 6 liters of urine. So we advise not to get dehydrated. We advise for the initial about a week to have about 6 liters to 7 liters of urine of water, and monitor the urine output. It should be equal to that of the intake he is making. Sometimes they pass even more, but not less. But around after 1 month, it comes down to about 3 to 4 liters. It's like a normal patient. But still, we advise them to have 3 to 4 liters of water, and they make out 3 to 4 liters of urine after 1 month. But for the first 2 3 days, they pass 15 to 20 liters of urine, which you have seen. Basically, when they just bathe in their urine for the first 2 3 days, if it's a successful transplant.
All right. I would like to first of all thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee, because if you have anybody has any more questions and you're watching us on FB Live, I'd be very grateful if you send it to me in the next 2-3 minutes on the chat that's available there. But in the meanwhile, I'd like to tell you that this has been quite a cross-country kind of a session, because we have Vasundhara ma'am who's sitting in Bombay, our Biocon counterparts were sitting, Vani in Delhi, and Shomitra, I think, in Kolkata, and we have Basu ma'am sitting in Bombay, as I said, me in Cochin, and Dr. Banerjee has been in a car in roads full of water, waterlogged, losing total connection with us, not being able to upload his PPT and PPP, but still being able to come on, and then finally climb the step and finally be able to come on this show.
You can have it.
Now, I've got it with me, Dada, and if you want, you can put it on now, but otherwise we can always share it on our page. And he finally climbed up the steps and he's come up here to do this for us. It has been so fabulous. Thank you so much. And thank you for your positivity. That is the most important thing that we look for in a doctor, who's always smiling and telling you, yes, yes, go ahead. That's what you do. Look at the fish, eat it too. Don't look out for your dogs right now. Best time to get the transplant because you'll be more compliant. I can't thank you enough for the energy that you've given all of us today, considering you were in such trying times, doctor.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Vasundhara ma'am has written on the chat, actually, thank you, Dr. Banerjee, for managing it so well in spite of flood traffic. You gave us such a great session. Truly, you have given us a fabulous session. And I also need to add that actually Dr. Banerjee is being able to hold his head high, even though there's been a personal loss in his family from his sister's side due to COVID. He's still been able to take my calls, talk to me, managing his nieces and nephews at home. They had to travel from abroad to come in as his sister's father-in-law had passed away. So onek, shubhecha to your family, Dada. And thank you for taking time up and still spreading positivity to all of us in spite of the demise in your family and your extended family. It truly means a lot to us. And it makes us believe that, yes, we can move forward, we can be faithful, and the systems are in place, right?
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Dada, we have one last question that has come, and that is Dr. Krishendu Hazra. Sir, I'm a CKD4 patient, age 43. Creatinine is 3. Shall I take the vaccine?
Definitely. Why not?
Definitely, why not? All right. Dr. Pratibha Pasi, I'm sorry if you feel that we're talking slow, but because of us talking fast, I think sometimes our bandwidths are varying, so it sometimes just jumps. But I'm really sorry about that. But we were just trying to say thank you to Dr. Banerjee for being here. Thank you, Seema, for watching, Renuka, and the rest of our Kidney Warrior family that is always there to support us. And we will be sharing his PowerPoint with you, which you will find on the net, on our website, which is on kidneywarriors.org, and also on the Kidney Warriors page on Facebook, where you are right now. Thank you so much. And the important message that Dada has given to people who are CKD, transplant, dialysis or not, is please take the vaccination, maintain social distancing, wear your mask, and keep sanitizing your hand. And one more last question has come, sorry, from Banushri Ghosh Sarkar. So which vaccine, okay, this is a similar question, but you just answered it because I think she's just joined us now. Is, sir, which vaccine is best for kidney transplant after recovering from COVID?
See, in India, we don't have the option of opting for mRNA vaccine. In India, the vaccine which has the best efficacy should be used. Of the current 3 vaccines which we have currently, the Covishield has an efficacy of around 70%. The Covaxin around 78. That has just come out with a pinch of salt, I don't know. And the last one is the Sputnik V, which claims to have an efficacy of around more than 90%. But that is also a little bit doubtful. Go with the Covishield, take the Covishield.
All right. Thank you so much. So remember, get vaccinated, inspire people to get vaccinated. Don't run out. Don't try to ape the West because they're all walking maskless. They're going to be totally, opening up.
Even if you are vaccinated, don't consider yourself to be a Superman. Be like a normal man.
Exactly. So with the vaccination, stay safe, stay home. And okay, Dr. Pratibha Pasi actually has a question for you, Dada. I have one question. I have one dialysis patient. She gets hypoglycemia when we use an ultra filter up on her dry weight. I have questions. Why did she get hypoglycemia at the end of dialysis?
There must be two things. Probably check your dialysate composition. Is it a dextrose containing dialysate or a non-dextrose containing dialysate? Number one. Number two, if she is having only hypoglycemia or hypoglycemia with hypotension also.
Dr. Pratibha Pasi, does your patient also have pressure problems at the end of the dialysis session? Well, she's not yet.
If she is having any kind of oral hypoglycemic or insulin, ask her not to consume it before the dialysis is done. Check whether the dialysate contains dextrose or not, because currently we recommend all dextrose containing dialysate. It prevents the hypoglycemic episodes. And thirdly, check the dry weight properly. Get a BCM done. What is the actual dry weight should be? Because if you go below the dry weight, the BP will go down as well as the sugar also.
All right. She does not have hypotension. She just has hypoglycemia.
Check the then dialysate composition. It is a dextrose containing dialysate or not.
All right. She says, thank you. Thank you. Okay, sir. I think this is when we'll close it because, we've been on now nearly for an hour. Thank you for the cooperation and the participation. And thank you for being patient with us because we really were waiting for our doctor to come on, who has been absolutely like a Pandora's box of information. You have been able to answer questions from all over, from pets to vaccinations to dialysis to hypoglycemia to normal to CKD, transplant and dialysis. You've taught us some new terminology like ATG. And then, of course, at one point, you sounded like a pilot saying alpha, beta, delta, and also told us about being a dialysis vintage. Thank you, Dr. Banerjee. It has been absolutely wonderful having you with us.
My pleasure.
And we look forward to more sessions with you and see you somewhere for good times more than bad. And we wish you all the best. And thank you for being with us. And thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Enjoy yourself. Remember, the weekend is only a day away. Stay in, stay home, wear your mask, sanitize your hands, and keep inspiring people to get vaccinated. Lots of love from all of us at the Kidney Warriors Foundation. I'm Anjali, and I'm always there for you. Thank you for our tech team, tech head, our very own boss lady, Vasundhara ma'am, and of course, to Vani and Saurav. Thank you, Biocon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.